All right. Hi, everybody. I'm here with Crispy, and we just decided to have a casual conversation about our own evolution and role playing and where we've been, where we want to go. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, absolutely. So, my name is Chris. I go by Crispy on my YouTube channel. You'll find me at Tablerunner. It's a relatively new YouTube channel, and the purpose of my channel is just to explore this change that I'm experiencing in the hobby, where I used to be, I would say, a casual. I wouldn't, not even casual. I don't know how you would put it, Daniel. You've got a talent for words. How would you describe someone that is they're interested in the hobby, they play on a weekly basis, they invest time and money in it, but they only are just scratching the surface of like, what would you call that? I guess I would just be a
Hmm.
casual hobbyist. I don't
It
know.
wouldn't necessarily be casual. I mean, you can take it seriously for a long time without ever delving into the questions of like, what else could we do with this? Like, what
Yes.
other directions
Yeah.
could we go, and how could it be different? And so, one of the common analogies I've heard is like the difference between hanging around and watching whatever movie happens to be on and you're chit chatting during the movie versus really like paying attention to the movie and dissecting it and getting a different thing out of it. And the
I
different
like that.
thing
Yeah.
is like, oh, look at how they did the lighting and the framing for that scene because
Hmm.
of what happens in 20 minutes from now.
Hmm.
And, a very silent foreshadowing using just framing, let's say.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
anyway, I mean, role playing can be like that. You can play it the same way. So like I started when I was 11 on the playground with the other
Hmm.
kids, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
No idea what's going on, and it is possible to play that way for the next 40 years and you die and you're happy and that's it.
Yes,
Um,
and I think that's if I could make a statement as bold as, I think that's perhaps the most common approach, is to
yeah.
kind of just do it the way you've always done it,
Yeah, and
and I'm
and
not doing
it,
that
it
anymore.
it does make sense. Like if I open up a game of Stratego or a
Hmm.
game of Risk,
Hmm.
I may not think, "Hey, I could change this game."
No.
But even though role-playing games really open the door to changing,
Hmm.
and like even explicit passages that are 40, 50 years old saying you should change X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
accordingly. A lot of people don't, and they just want to play it out of the box, quote unquote.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I guess I did for a while when I was young. But as we were discussing, we reach a point when we want to start changing. Let's do you first. So, how old
Sure.
were you when you started?
Okay, so I can trace it back. Maybe I was probably 11, 12, maybe, and maybe a little younger than that. And it wasn't so much that I was playing; it's just that I discovered a book that was kind of coincided with a favorite cartoon that I was watching, and the artwork pulled me in. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And I saw an ad in a comic book, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I want to do this. It was it was maybe one of the Spider-Man comics or X-Men or something that I was collecting at the time. And as just as a little kid, buying it at the corner store. And I saw this ad, and it was like, well, you could play. It was Robotech of all things, and I saw this. Well, this is a Robotech role playing game where you can actually play with these giant transformable robots that violate all sense of scale and all of that. But
Right, right.
they just were so cool, and I just loved it. So I picked it up, and then uh, reading through a book, I just couldn't make any sense of it. Eventually, trying to run a game with that, it was a failure. Thankfully, a friendship did survive, but I'm surprised that it did. And then just kind of a long hiatus after that. Like, I would collect the books because I liked the artwork. Never really played the books. Never really played it. I think that's perhaps surprisingly common even these days, that people buy the book and then don't actually play the game.
Hmm.
And then in university, I was my next door neighbor, this guy doing a PhD in electrical engineering. He's just brilliant, and he had someone that was doing some kind of doctorate work in poli sci, and another guy that was doing these brilliant people, and they were playing this Dungeons and Dragons game in the like we were all in married family housing at the university I was attending,
Mhm.
and I was curious, and so I asked him like, "What are you guys doing?" I'm like, "We're playing D&D." I'm like, "Oh, I've never played D&D. I'd like to try it. I didn't start with D&D. I'm kind of curious. Would you mind if I came?" And they're of course happy to have me join in. And it was really, I had a lot of fun. It was great, and it was my first real introduction to playing the game rather than just having some game books that I'd periodically thumb through and go, "Well, that's cool artwork. I like that." So that started back in, I would say, 98. And then since then, I was hooked, and I had to have a weekly game since then.
Wow.
So that was my thing. And then we, of course, moved several times in different communities, and in some cases, I had to create groups where there weren't any. And so that
Mhm.
was, ads taped up on windows. Call me.
Right.
I want to have friends to play this game. Are you
Right.
curious about it? So I've done that basically without interruption up until 2020, and then of course things because of the pandemic, things had to be shut down for a time. And I think as I was thinking about what changed for me in the last year, I think that was part of it because it was a forced hiatus that drove us online. And being running games online is quite a bit different than in person,
Oh
and it
yeah.
maybe allowed me to compartmentalize a little bit the game. So start thinking about the game a little differently than just, hey, we got some friends coming over, we're gonna have a great time, we'll have some laughs, yada yada yada. A little more of a beer and pretzel approach, and then having that removed, that social element removed, and having it a little more detached. Whereas we're not in the same location. A lot of human communication is nonverbal, so we're not getting that same
Yeah.
uh, the same sort of things as we were before. And then going back to in person as soon as I possibly could before they would send the police after me or whatever. So as soon as we were able to, we were running in person again. But I realized then at that point, it's not just me gathering that I'm looking for. I'm looking for an experience in the game, and I get glimpses of it from time to time, enough that it's kind of tantalizing. Like, oh, there's something different. I love board games. I play board games. I played board games last night even. It was great. But it's not the same experience. There's something about role-playing games
Yeah.
that is a thing unto itself. It's not, yes, it's still a game, but it has something, it's maybe a little difficult to describe. I don't have the words for it, but it is something completely, there's something that can be done, as you've put in your recent video. You put this well. There is something about role-playing games that you cannot get anywhere else.
Right.
And that's, so I went into this rabbit hole of, hey, there's something I'm missing here, or I get glimpses of it, I want more of it. And that's what's brought me to this to where I am now, where I'm like, no, 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 the issue is we're not we're not brave enough, or we're just worried about what others would say if we fully commit to, I'm going to play this character like it's like this character is real. Like I'm absolutely
Hmm.
convinced. I'm going to suspend my disbelief to the point where there's no distance between me and the character as we're playing. I'm playing this character. It is me, but not me at the same time. And the more we've gone down that road, Daniel, the more the it's just the hobby's just come alive again, and it's exciting. See, what I was doing before is I would persist with a certain game up till a point where I'm like, oh, maybe the problem's the game. Maybe that's why I'm feeling burned out, or maybe that's why it's just not clicking like it once did. I know, I'll just change the game, and then new mechanics will fix it. And for a time, I think they help because it forces us out of maybe a comfort zone,
Hmm.
but it doesn't address the underlying issue. The underlying issue is that I wasn't actually doing what the game is suggesting we do, which is role play. I wasn't actually role playing. That was the problem.
Hmm.
So fixing that, I actually has made it so that while we do switch games still from time to time to try out new things, there's a commonality now that allows for more excellent sessions, rather than just some excellence. We kind of want to have excellence be the norm, or
Right.
something memorable would be the more norm. Maybe not excellent, but something memorable.
Right.
So yeah, that's my background. Just starting off is just collecting the books because I thought they looked nice, and and then eventually running a game and getting hooked into this. Hey, there's something here, I really like it, and can all the way up until very recently where I'm like, you know what, I still really like it. I can see myself committed to this, but I can't commit to play it the same way that I played it back when I was in my university days. Like
Sure.
there's got to be something more. So
Sure.
that's a lot of words for my
No,
journey
that's
so
great.
far.
No, that's
Um,
excellent. So I think about the approach people take. So maybe some people really think, oh, it would be silly if we started critiquing the way we play. Maybe they really
yeah,
think,
yeah, we
okay, the
just
game,
started that. Yeah,
yeah,
we just started doing that too. Like we're gonna do more of this where we're gonna post. Like I'm so excited for tomorrow, Daniel, because I've got a bunch of like-minded people that we're gonna do a live actual play, and then afterwards we're gonna just tear it apart. Like, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what was,
hmm
and I think that kind of I'm excited for that activity now. Like just
hmm
taking a look at how I'm playing, not in terms of strategy or do I have a better build or
right,
I want to improve system mastery. Not that system mastery is not important. I think it is important. It's just that it's not the magic ingredient. It's not the component that I want to work on the most. I want to work on that immersion element, which comes from actually role playing instead of
yeah,
um, doing whatever it is that most of what I have been doing for over 20 years, which is not
right,
quite what I claimed it was.
right, right. That's good. Um, so I think the direction I took. So when I was young, like we were talking about before, I'd played what I inherited, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what most of us do. And I think it's also the case that we are affected by if we have someone who in the group is really serious about,
Mm-hmm.
hey, let's homebrew and go through 50 iterations of a homebrew until finally they admit, okay, they're really trying to make their own system.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
having just one person in the group like that can affect things.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that most of my friends were very serious about wanting to do serious home brewing.
Mm-hmm.
And we were teens. We didn't really know what we were doing. I mean, we were kind of floundering around. It was fun, but it wasn't producing anything useful, I don't think.
Right. Right.
Um, other than when you're young, you think everything you do is genius, right?
Of
Uh,
course. Of course.
um, but yeah, I mean, I definitely want the same thing. The direction I was taking through my collegiate and post-collegiate years was especially, so I was late in discovering the website, The Forge.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered it after 9/11. I don't know when I discovered, but it was after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I was shocked to discover that other people were actually, taking all of this stuff seriously
Mm-hmm.
and going in these radically different directions.
Mm-hmm.
Most of which I had no interest in where they were going. But
Mm-hmm.
the valuable lesson I learned was that every element in your game should facilitate the specific goal that you have, right?
Right. Right.
And um, and I also was discovering that I had all of these unconscious habits that I had inherited in role
Mm-hmm.
playing games.
Mm-hmm.
And, ultimately, and this is off and on through the years, I mean, life would interrupt me from working on this, but, what I can see my own um, growth spurts, I should call them, where
Mm-hmm.
I would move in radically different directions for a while, see what happened,
Mm-hmm.
revert, change again, back and forth. And I mean, that's the process. That's the best process for learning how to do this, how to make the changes.
Right.
Um, I do believe that mechanics matter significantly to the experience, the
Mm-hmm.
kind of experience, the subgenre that you're after. I know you play multiple genres, right?
I do. Yeah. I move
Yeah.
around a lot.
Yeah.
A
Are you
little bit like a squirrel. Oh, squirrel, squirrel, squirrel,
are you in
all over the
love with a
place.
specific one? Is there one that you
You know
really
what?
gravitate
It's
to?
hard. I've been asked this. I was asked this recently, and then when I gave my answer, I was accused of just equivocating, which was absolutely accurate. I was, I was absolutely doing that. I can tell you, I do enjoy. I do really enjoy Savage Worlds. I like it a lot. I don't like everything about it, but I do like the mechanics of it because, as you say, the designers they it's I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but the designers wanted something fast and furious. That's what their tagline was. We want something fast that you certainly can play that fast.
Mhm.
So I like that a lot. I've spent some time with DCC in different iterations. Certainly, I've played the fifth edition. I've played Pathfinder, not second edition, first edition. We've played a lot of different things. I've done a little bit of Numenera. I've done a little bit in what else? Well, I won't bore you with all of the ones that I've gone through, but a lot of them, when I come back to it now, is I want a system that encourages players to play their characters if the character's real.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know enough about mechanics, game mechanics, and I've never spent enough time really exploring the minute details of decisions as to why this mechanic and not this mechanic. So there are some in some areas, like I'm sure I don't know that anyone in our audiences would be more of the hardcore OSR one-to-one time crowd that would be like, well, you're obviously just not doing it right because you haven't applied the mechanics as they were laid out at the foundation of the hobby, and you must just do those. And if you depart from that, then you're not actually doing the real thing. So I just don't know enough about that, Daniel. I think that I would have to defer to others. My experience is much more on just running someone else's product, and I have to give kudos to Savage Worlds as a system because it does address that cinematic itch. Like I want that kind of I don't want a story game. Like I don't like that idea where there's just not enough mechanics to the framework's not there. In other words, like you need to have a framework. I agree with you. I think mechanics are really important. I think mechanics should reinforce what you're looking for, but I haven't yet found that kind of perfect game. And maybe one doesn't exist. And it's just so I keep on experimenting, as you say. I think experimentation is really important. I keep experimenting on can I run this as we're always in character. Me as the game master, I'm in character. All the players are in character all the time. There's a limited amount of talk out of character, if any, but very, very, and then it moves quick and it encourages cinematic play. Um, because I'm moving more away from that wargaming heritage. I've read Peterson's book on playing at the world. I read that, and
Mhm.
so I understand a little bit of the history that was recommended to me. And it's a it's a fat book. You probably read it. It's exhaustive in its detail,
No, I didn't
but
read that one. I read
yeah,
The Elusive Shift by
okay,
Peterson, and that was excellent.
yeah,
That was where I discovered, I think that's where I discovered the gamer named Sandy Eisen,
hmm
who was playing in this early 70s. I mean, just within a year of the game first coming out.
hmm
And well, that book was very useful because it showed that. See, I had believed that a lot of the divergences of gaming appetites started like in the late 90s.
hmm
And it was really fed by the internet. And the elusive
right,
shift showed me that that was totally wrong. It showed
really,
me that those divergences started about 10 minutes after role playing came out. I mean, it's amazing that you have people pulling in very different directions
right,
and motivated by very different things. Often money is at the root of
sure,
them, which is disgusting. But I mean that's humanity, right? We're greedy
hmm
bastards. Um,
always. It's a human
but
constant.
yeah, but it was an excellent book. So and there were so many insights I picked up from that, which so I mentioned the gamer named Sandy Eisen, and it was his um conclusion that one of the great detractors to this immersion we're talking about is the fact that the players come to understand the mechanics.
Oh,
And
okay.
he
Okay.
so he came out with
Interesting.
what someone, I don't know, someone called Ison's vow. And so his vow that he made, I think this is 74 or 75, is that none of my players, quote unquote, quote, none of my players will ever know the mechanics of the game that we're playing. And
Interesting. Interesting.
so this is actually what I've ended up in the same place, although it's not
Hmm.
possible because everyone I play with, they know the mechanics of the game I play. But
Hmm.
I mean, this is what puts me on the far niche and
Hmm.
places where most people are not willing to experiment with, which is that as the players are playing, this is a shift I just made in the past few years.
Hmm.
Yeah, that as they're playing, they have no character sheets. They have no
Okay.
dice. They have
Okay.
no statistics, no numbers. Their
Hmm.
attention is 100% on what's happening with their character, with the world, with other characters. That's
Right.
it. And the GM handles all of the mechanics. It's kind of like um, in the movie The Matrix, you have the people who are in the
Hmm.
real world looking at the computer screens, which are
Hmm.
gobbledygook of numbers, right?
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
the people who are in the Matrix who see reality, quote unquote, right?
Right. Right.
So the paradigm where we are now is the GM is the only one outside the Matrix,
Hmm.
and the players are living the real reality, and there's no intrusion of the meta. There's no
Hmm.
intrusion of numbers or mechanics or I want to use this skill now. That's bullshit
Hmm.
in our paradigm, right? Because
Hmm.
you've just said I'm going to stop role playing now and I'm going to war
Roll
game.
the dice. Yeah. Yeah.
And so again, I mean, a
So
lot
how
of
do you in
people.
your in that that's fascinating to me, Daniel. So how do you handle the, let's say, a skill check? Like how that, I assume you still have um some kind of randomizer, like you're using dice, the players aren't, but you're using
Right.
some kind of random number generator or outcome generator, maybe not numbers.
Oh yeah.
How does that handle? How do you handle that?
So going back before this huge methodological shift where the pure opacity version,
Hmm.
before that, the mechanics of my system are trying to emulate the reality of just life.
Hmm.
And so the fact is that role-playing games in as part of the tradition of being exciting, they were rolling wildly disparate conclusions. This is why I hate the D20. The D20 says that if I go out and I walk to my car and I drive to the grocery store, well, there's
Hmm.
a 5% chance my car blows up or that I encounter terrorists on the way or,
Right, right.
whatever. And so I jettisoned all of that and I basically said, GMs have brains. You trust your general intuition about life, and if you're good at something, you're going to succeed the vast majority of the time under standard circumstances. If
Right.
something extreme happens, then your chances of something going wrong increase, etc. So I have a mechanic, and there are dice, of course,
Hmm.
that are involved, but they only come out to play when something extreme gets pushed.
I
Like
see.
any of us can climb over a 6-foot wall and get to the other side
Sure.
if we have 10 minutes to do it.
Hmm.
Anyone of any age can do that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
If you're being chased by a rabid wolf
Hmm.
and you need to go over in about 4 seconds, now the dice come out to
Now the
play.
dice come out.
And now your skills really matter because that
Hmm.
wolf is faster than you. I'm sorry.
So
So,
Daniel,
yeah.
yeah, another question came up as you were talking. The You had mentioned, and the players don't have character sheets, but they are in. So that I how can you describe, talk to me more about that? Because how do you encourage your players to stay in character, not just play themselves? Like, or do they just play themselves? What's
Oh
the
no, they absolutely are there to play their characters. And
their
so
character, right?
yeah,
Okay.
so what they're good at, I mean, if they need to make a list of things that they're really good at, that's fine,
Mhm.
but they don't get to see
Okay.
any numbers
Oh, okay.
corresponding to it.
Okay.
Or
So they would
if
just have a list say, I'm good at these things,
yeah, I'm
whatever
really good
good
at
means. Yeah.
A through
Okay.
J. I'm really good at these things.
Okay.
Or let's say you're a spellcaster, and
Yeah.
let's say that you have 30 different spells. It's perfectly fine, in fact, necessary that you've written down what you think those spells generally do. But
Oh,
you
okay.
don't get to know exactly what they do,
Exactly what they
and
do.
you don't
Okay.
get to know the numerical effects or the systemic effects.
I like that.
So the old
Yeah.
traditional magic missile or whatever spell you
Right.
want.
Right.
Um, all you as a player would know is I have this spell where I throw this ball of green light and it hurts
Yeah.
the guy or it may kill the guy.
Right. So it's still
And
mysterious. I like
yeah,
that.
it maintains the mystery. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that this is the far direction I go. But through the years, we were very much in the camp of wanting to get rid of the wild randomness because it
Right.
it it actually broke our belief in the world. The world was no longer a place that we felt we could take a walk in because God,
Yeah.
the dice may see that a cavern opens up under my cabin,
Right.
whatever. I mean that's
Yeah. Yeah.
hyperbole, but this is the
Still.
direction we were going through the years was
Yeah.
wanting it to be more realistic so that it bound up with our intuitions of what real life is.
Hmm.
And so I did an old podcast referencing Tolkien. I don't know if you saw it or not. It's um, on YouTube. I called it the power of realism, but
Okay.
essentially I'm using Tolkien's On Fairy Stories essay,
Hmm.
saying that realism matters significantly, and having dragons and fairies doesn't mean it's unrealistic. It's simply
Hmm.
a secondary world, and so that's what we're all playing in, right? We're all playing in secondary worlds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But worlds
Um,
that need to be, I like that term, secondary worlds. But it's because it's still a world with that's internally consistent and
yeah,
believable. Like it has
that's right.
to, whatever the rules are that we agree upon or we think of, I suppose, because I do like this idea that the characters. I love that description you gave of a cantrip type spell where yeah, everyone knows what this does and everyone knows what the radius of effect is and everyone knows. I like the idea that it's mysterious. It doesn't necessarily, you don't, you know what it looks like, but what it's actually doing and the limits of it, you don't necessarily know. With enough practice, you can get pretty clear on what it is, but there's always that. I like that unknown feature. But yeah, the realism thing is key. I think that's a key thing that we're discovering that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with your group, do you have a stable group that you're playing with, or are you
Do
alternating?
I have a stable group, and so this is part of my experience has been how do I manage how do I manage that with people that are like, hey, we're here for the game. I brought chips today or whatever it is. And here I am like, okay, so for tonight's session, you're not going to refer to me out of character once, like, and then what is he talking about? What is it? So
Mhm.
it in because not everyone has the same epiphany, the same awakening at once. It's been it's been really fascinating to see how I've been able to where it's not always successful, Daniel, but when I come to my group, this is a stable group. It's been meeting, in person weekly for I want to say 17 years. So it's been like these aren't necessarily now we have some new players. Like there are people that come in and out, but the group itself is we have some players that have been here since the inception. And it's been really fun to show how this hobby is more than what you thought it was. And then to see that realization come in and then talk about it afterwards, where it's so it's that's been I guess if I could report back, I'm still fairly new early on in this endeavor, but early indications all point to that when shown that the world is real that you've imagined, like when you're getting into that type of play, it's you don't have to sell the hobby anymore. It sells itself.
Mhm.
The game sells itself. The experience sells itself because I've had many times now players come after me or after the game and they're leaving and we're just talking about what happened and they said I felt like I was there. When that
Yeah.
happened, I could picture it, I could hear it, I could smell it, I everything. I felt like I was there. And no board game does that. Like
Right.
there's so they come out they come out from that session and they said we can't go back now. Now that I've had that,
Yeah,
I
that's
can't go
good.
back.
That's
You know,
good.
I can't go back to a war game unless the premise of our game night that night was war game. But that's not what the premise is. Like the premise of this group is role playing. It's a role playing game. It's a you're in it. So that's been fascinating because and that's what keeps me kind of excited about showing people what we're talking about here is that I think the more people that experience it, the more they're going to want that thing. They're going to say that is what it's not just tracking arrows on the character sheet. That's not strictly speaking, that's not role play. That's an administration task. Yes, it makes the world feel real that there's scarcity that exists in the world, but like your players aren't using a character sheet to represent the realism of the world. They're using their imagination. And
Yeah.
that's where I want to go as well.
Yeah. So I'd like to go back with you. So can you recall when this appetite for something deeper, we'll say, started, and was it just you, or was it also one of your other players?
Those are two great questions. I would say my appetite for change, which became an obsession for change, happened when I was on some doing some, doom scrolling on. I think they call it doom scrolling now, but scrolling on YouTube and just going through my recommendations, and I came across a channel, and the channel was providing some criticism of an actual play. And when I watched that criticism, and I understand some people take criticism as, oh, this is just bad faith arguments, but I didn't take it that way. I looked at that as if it was my game being criticized because I saw my own how I was playing it. And so having that, it served like a mirror. Like I could watch myself, and then I listened to this criticism from this YouTuber, and then I watched another one and another one and another one, and then I found another YouTube channel, and they're talking about something that, like, wait, I've never even considered that people would play this way. Like I'd never even considered. Like I somehow I missed the guy that you mentioned in 1976 or whatever it was, that where I missed that. And so for me, that was the main catalyst. Then like, why did I saw that, and I saw this criticism, and I could see myself as the one being criticized, and for some reason, I, instead of getting my back up and just clicking out of the video right away and saying whatever, that guy's just, he's some ornery person, he's just shouting,
Mhm.
angry, shouting down the well again, and who needs
Right.
that.
Right.
Instead of doing that, thankfully, i I internalized it. I said, wait, no, I think he's got a point. I think he's right. I think that this is the missing component. And as to the second part of your question, so that's what it was. I actually was one that was, I guess, rescued from a hobby of mediocrity forever, right? By listening to someone, and no qualms. I should give him credit. And it was Shauner's channel. I watched Shauner criticize a game, and I realized that's my game, and I absolutely should change that. And why? How do I change it? So I listened to that, and I found another channel that was talking about, well, you can actually play a game completely immersed the whole time. And I'm like, what? How do you do that? And so I found his channel. I was watching his channel.
Mhm.
So I talked to out of not on the game night. I talked to one of the players, and I because we're friends outside of
Sure.
just the game.
Sure. Yeah.
And I said, look, I think we need to recenter what we're doing. I think we've lost a little bit of the excitement of the hobby because of what we've this kind of lazy play that we've fallen into, that I'm guilty of. And I take ownership for it. Like I'm running the game, so I take full ownership for that. And then he became an ally in the game, uh, for this change. But really, it only took one session, Daniel. It just took one session where I just
Mhm.
said, "Look, we're going to change something here, and this is what we're going to change." And I started small, and my small change which I imagine that you would agree with, is I just said to them, I commit to you right now that I will not move your characters in the world, period. Like,
Mhm.
just from my fiat. Like, yes, of course, if you're in the river's moving you down, right? But it's not just like me deciding where you're going to go next, right? Like, that's you decided to get into the river. Where the current is going, that's my control. But yeah, but I'm
Right.
not going to I'm not going to take control of your characters that way. And
Mhm.
that was the change. And it just started that way. Just that small thing. And I positioned it to them so that, hey, I want to return agency to you that I have just over the course of time, not thinking deeply enough about what I was doing as a game master. I was wresting that control of the character from its proper ownership to me.
Mhm.
And that's that I what player would be upset if their game master turns to them and said, "Hey, Daniel, I think you should have more control on your character." I'm like, no, I don't want control. You take all the
Right.
control.
Right.
Like, why would anyone? So, like, it was a soft sell, an easy sell,
Mhm.
and then that created a table full of people that are like, yeah, let's see where this goes. Why not try this? I like this. I like that.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean I get to decide where? Yes, you always get to decide where you're going.
Right.
So, that really helped. And then so of the game group, I have two in particular that are really good at, they'll text me through the week and say, I really like this. I think this is great. And then I have one or two at the table which are just, for whatever, they've got a natural aptitude for imagining themselves in that world. And they're really good at it. And one or two at the table is all you need, I think, before you can really start. And sometimes that one is me, but it doesn't take a lot of it's highly contagious. So once you get this,
Right.
it propagates so quickly amongst the group that at least in my experience and my sample size, like my N equals what, 5, N equals 6. Like, it's not a large sample size, but
Well,
it's
that's
still,
a hefty size for a group.
well, it can be
Yeah.
at times. And
Yeah.
that's something that has been a bit of a struggle because where people have been sick or away or couldn't make it to a game session, and we had 2 or 3 instead of the normal 4 or 5
Mhm.
players plus me, uh, it was more immersive with a smaller number
Yeah.
than. And I definitely think that it's a style of play that is more, um, it lends itself more to smaller groups rather than large groups. Large
Yeah.
groups, I think you're really more into move the pog or move the miniature around on the grid,
Right.
uh, than imagine a world as rich as our own, but a secondary world.
Yeah. So you didn't actually encounter resistance from this group of
I
people.
didn't.
Oh,
No, I
that's
only encounter
you are so
resistance
lucky. You
online.
don't know how lucky you are,
Yeah, I am
because
very fortunate. Yeah.
often what I've heard through the years, the problem is, let's say you have a group of a GM and 4 players.
Mhm.
Usually, what happens, and this I get it, but it's stupid that we behave this way, is that you'll have one player who says, "I just want to keep doing X. X may be, I want to
Yeah.
stick with D&D as we've been playing it for the past, 20 whatever years," and everyone else capitulates. And
Yeah.
it's sad because what you just said is, I want to keep watching Adam Sandler shit movies
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
Godfather 1 or 2.
Yes.
That's what
Yeah.
you've just said, is that
Yeah.
you're not willing to find out if you are retarding the process of enjoyment.
Yes, exactly.
And it's
Exactly.
it's sad. So you got really lucky.
Yeah, I did. I
Like,
really lucked
yeah,
out, but
yeah.
I'm also, I'm comfortable enough with what I want that if I did have a situation where someone was like, no, I love the mediocrity, that's what I want. I would just say, look, it's not the game for you. And,
Yeah,
we can be friends. If you want to hang out and do something else, that's fine. I'm cool with that. But for this, no, I want
yeah,
to strive for excellence in this, and I want to change. And I'm not just prepared to be the same game that I saw criticized online, which was my game, and
yeah,
it was all valid criticism. I do owe him a lot for all the blowback that he gets when he does that, because people don't like to see the criticism. But without that criticism, I'd probably be on my way out of the hobby eventually, just getting burned out doing the same thing, the
Yeah,
same mediocre
sure,
way.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question, but you're right. And I have had a few people, like I remember one time, I had a person that was only in the group for a short period of time, and he took himself out of the group because he just wanted to play fifth edition standard boilerplate D&D, and we were exploring a science fiction setting at the time, and we're playing something different, and he's like, no, I just want to play my dwarven fighter or whatever, and I don't want to do anything else than that. I'm like, well, I'm sure you can find a group that'll do that, and all you know
Yeah.
we're not going to try to hold on to you. Just go and find what you're looking for. I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll find it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the way we should do it. It's not like insulting, and it's
Mhm.
not a friendship ender to
No.
say, I don't want to do that at all.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
activity that you want to do, I just don't want to do. We'll be doing this activity. If you want to try it, great. If not, that's fine.
Mhm.
I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll go out to eat or what, whatever.
Exactly. Or
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. We could share
yeah,
something else, but we
yeah,
we won't be sharing this
yeah,
whatever this is
yeah,
because I'm just not prepared to maintain the status quo anymore. I
yeah.
I want something different. Yeah.
So another thing I can thank the Forge for, I think, so this is a 20-year-old memory, so and my memory banks are rotting away, so don't trust them.
Yeah,
Um,
mine too.
but is the realization that the definition of a role-playing system, the the connotation we had was that you're talking about mechanics, but I don't think that's true. I
Mm-mm.
think that the definition is some mixture of methodology, mechanics, and setting.
Yes.
So, and methodology is primary.
Hmm.
And so, the methodological changes I made through the decades were always increasing the power of imagination, the unity of perspective between player and character. Like
Hmm.
that's the goal, and that's the ongoing project is to keep finding ways to unify that perspective. And when you do that, then you can generate, I believe, the strongest otherworld immersion possible
Hmm.
is when
Hmm.
you and that's why I took the furthest leap, which was the rules opacity version, because that was like the final frontier of it all. But
Hmm.
even if your group is not willing to go that far, and it is hard, it is scary to jump that chasm.
Hmm.
Or people think it's scary. I don't know why, because all you have to do is experiment a few times.
Yeah, just try it out. Hmm.
Try it out, right?
I like
But
trying stuff
yeah,
out. Yeah.
yeah. But can you recall? So you mentioned the first method change, which was as GM, you're going to stop saying, "Okay, you go to this village or you go
Hmm.
to this whatever." So
Hmm.
what other methods can you recall
Yeah.
having made?
The other big one that started early on was the clarification that though I am there at the table participating in the session, there's no crispy in the sky that you can ask a question to. And so the next major change after I said I will not I'm not going to unless there's some force of nature or another character that I have control of in the world, I'm not going to move you around. The other thing that's going to happen is you're not going to ask me any questions. And that was a big change. It took a lot of practice, but again, I have to give credit to my group. They were willing to give the experiment a try. I said, we're going to run this as if you are there. You can't just ask the sky, well, is there this there? Is there that there? I'll give you a description and we'll talk about afterwards whether or not I'm giving enough description, but I'm not going to be answering out of character questions. Like what about this or what about that? What about this? We're not gonna play that game. What
Hmm.
we're gonna do is we're going to have a world, and in that world you can explore the world. I'll describe, you tell me what you're doing, I'll describe it, and if you need to know something, well, do I know this or do I know that? You're going to use your imagination in the setting to determine whether or not you know that. And I'm quite prepared to give you creative license to populate this room with a broom or whatever it is, because we're in a janitor's closet. Okay, then I'm not going to, what is there a mop? Is there a, you tell me, like it's there, it's a janitor's closet. If it could, if that's in the world, in this world, if they mop the floors, you decide, yes, there's a,
Hmm.
so eliminating out of character questions to the game master was the second major change. And it has been so liberating for player and game master alike. It has been so good. That taking those out of character questions out of there is great. And now it encourages players to interact with actual characters in the setting rather than the disembodied voice of the game master who's not there. I'm there through my characters, but I'm not there as just this disembodied voice. It's like they're sending up supplications to someone on high to
Right.
please, can I do this? Can I do what is this? What is that? No, we don't have any of that anymore. And that's been a
Okay.
really good thing. That change, that was the second big change. Absolutely. And a great one. I wholeheartedly recommend experimenting with that. Do not ask questions out of character to the game master. And if you're
Yeah.
getting those, just don't answer them. You just
Yeah. So thinking about that, so it sounds like it would be the kinds of things that would be to expedite exploration.
yes. Yeah.
So essentially, that kind of question is saying, "Hey, Chris, assume that I walked around the city for half an hour. Tell
Mhm.
me what I found out." So,
Yes.
so
Yeah,
that's kind of
exactly.
what that is doing. And you're
Yeah.
saying we're not going to expedite.
No.
We're going to have you explore.
Yeah, just explore.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's good.
Explore. And
Interesting.
I like that a lot. I like taking that out of the next thing we did after that. And that took some time. So it took some time to retrain ourselves so they're not just immediately, it's
Sure.
your turn, Daniel. You're just asking the game master your 4 or 5 questions until you've exhausted your time of questions. And then we go to the next player and they just ask questions, trying to guess the correct question to ask to get the answer to solve the. So we eliminated that. That took a lot of time. Then the next thing that we did is we spent more time thinking about the language we're using to describe the actions of the characters. And so that was another big change because we'd all fallen into the idea that I need to leave enough uncertainty in my action so I'm not presuming the result every time. But what we had done in that effort is we had moved away from describing what we're attempting in the now to what we're potentially going to at some undefined time in the future going to do. So by cleaning up that language and saying, instead of saying I'm going to, I'm going to, I'm going to, I'm going to, uh, just say what you're doing right now, and then bringing the action into the this really helped with players being able to picture what's happening in a scene, picture
Right.
what's happening in the world by 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 just tightening up the language a little bit. And we're still working on this. This is something that's still an ongoing effort.
Mhm.
Instead of saying I'm going to draw my sword, by saying my hand drops to the hilt of my sword, and I pull it from the scabbard. Okay, great. That's much better than I'm going to draw my sword. Well, when are you going to do that? Like,
Right.
are you going to do
Yeah.
that immediately? Is it imminent? And so we got to be careful about this because we don't want to presume success where there is an interesting chance for failure. So I
Mhm.
am still talking about trying to doing it, but I'm not. I'm trying to bring the action of as close to the present as possible and not have it be. Now this again, this is experimentation and fine tuning, but it's
Sure.
an ongoing effort, and that has also been good. I check in with the players and say, what do you think about this? We've been trying this for a while. Tell me your feedback. What is it that you noticed a difference? And all of them without exception said, no, when we're in the now right there,
Mhm.
the game seems more intense. It's everything happening right now, and
Yeah.
not it's just a little ways into the future. So there's always a chance that we can maybe fudge it a little bit, or maybe because if I'm going to draw my sword and then the next guy says something, I'm like, oh no, no, I didn't do that. No, I guess I'll retcon that. We're getting away from that kind of play, which is surprisingly common
Mhm.
when I watch other people playing online. So yeah, that's maybe the third thing, Daniel, that we're working on.
Okay.
It's good.
And has there been any like dissension about the specific methods that you're changing?
Not so far.
That's
I have a
great.
pretty loud personality, so it is possible that there's someone that there's someone just quietly, grating against these. Oh man, what's he doing now? But I do try to have open discussions with
Yeah,
players, and I haven't had anyone say, "Oh, this is no good."
yeah.
In fact, I had one player, and I have I. It's not to say it's always smooth sailing. I don't want to give the impression that it's like, oh yeah, everything is just sunshine, rainbows, and
Yeah.
happiness everywhere
Yeah.
in my table. I do sometimes have issues with players, but I've had players that said, "Oh, I wasn't quite understanding what you were getting at here." But then I went online and I watched a couple of YouTube channels, and there's something else that was recommended, and I watched someone playing the way you describe you're looking for, and now I get it. So
Hmm.
I think that's helpful for those that are not quite to that that other world immersion that you're talking about. It's helpful for them to watch someone that is doing that,
Yeah.
so that they can understand, oh, that's what that looks like.
Sure.
Oh, okay, I get it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I haven't had to, unless they're suffering in silence, which I don't think they are, because
Right.
the other thing
Yeah.
that I've noticed is that the more that we have this other world immersion, the more that we're in that role play element, and not uh, we got players coming on time. Everyone's excited to be there. They want to
Phones
get
are
right
off.
into it. Yeah, yeah.
Turn
So
off your damn phones when you get
yeah,
there.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like I shouldn't. This should be interesting enough to you that
Yeah.
I'm not competing for your attention with
Right.
some other device.
Yeah.
Uh, that would be a game breaker for me, because
Yeah.
I want you to sell yourself on the fiction rather than me trying to just always do my little pitch to try to get you into it.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
do little things, Daniel, that work for some groups and not others, but for us, it's good. I'll put setting appropriate music on.
Oh, yeah.
I have that going. I will sometimes, in some settings, I'll change the music and
Oh,
try
yeah.
to use that as a hit
Oh,
the
totally.
senses.
I have 25-year-old music playlists, and I
Nice.
mean gigs after gigs of MP3
Nice.
files, okay,
Nice.
for each specific mood. And I mean
Perfect.
specific. So I mean,
That's awesome.
I've always been this crazy ass neurotic kid. I mean, I really was. And so I would obsess over, even young, I was obsessing over nuances. And so back in the heyday, um, after college, or in between college, I should say, at one point I'm role playing about 50 hours a week. And
Wow.
so, and we are, the campaign in its own way was always moving forward, even when we weren't playing, because everyone was
Right.
talking about it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
by the time we get together and we start playing, and then the sun sets, the candles come out, the music goes on.
Mhm.
I'm living in this little shed that almost killed me with pneumonia, by the way. So role playing, back even way back then was just the priority, and
Right.
perfecting it was the thing. So
That's awesome. I love that.
yeah, or mentally ill, whichever way you want to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
An unhealthy obsession,
Yeah,
but it's
absolutely,
glorious.
totally. Yeah. It really is. Yeah, it's good to be Napoleon in the nut house. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
We just kind of embrace it. Like
Yeah.
I was on someone
Yeah.
else's channel recently. We're like, yeah, we just embrace the cringe. We
Yeah.
love it. We're just gonna do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no
Music
going
is really
back.
important.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
no interruptions is very important.
Very important. I turn off the phone. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. No interruptions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we used to unplug the phone. I mean, that's
Hmm.
way back. It's like, if there's
Yeah.
a fire, I guess we'll hear about
We'll hear about it eventually, or we'll smell the
it.
smoke, something. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll do things too. Like I'll make sure we run for about 3.5 hours, 3 hours or so, 3.5 hours,
Mhm.
and I always make sure I use the restroom before. I'm not gonna. I don't do a bathroom break. I go. Like, and we so because I don't want any interruption. Like, well, we're in it and everyone's feeling it and they can smell the grimy alleys of New York City 1970, and they can just feel it. Like, that I don't want to all of a sudden, oh, and by the way, sorry, I just got to go to the bathroom. Like,
Right.
just to
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
I can't do it.
Sure.
Not that
Sure.
you shouldn't have breaks, obviously.
Right.
If you're gaming 50 hours a week, then you're gonna have some breaks somewhere.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
those days are gone. But even after that, when I was playing just once a week, so we'd play on Saturday, and we would play from noon until about 1 a.m.
Wow.
And we would have probably one like hour break where we're
Hmm.
sitting around eating, but we're talking about campaign stuff during that time mostly.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's something about the long sessions that really get you into the same vibe.
Yes, that's
And
true.
and
Yep.
so I don't like, matter of fact, I won't play less than 6 hours. It's not
Oh,
worth
wow.
my time to play less than 6 hours because the motor has just warmed up and we're just going down the highway.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's a personal thing. I'm not saying it
Hmm.
should be anybody's rule. It's just a personal thing with me that if I don't play at least 6 hours, then don't even start with me because I won't
Hmm.
really enjoy it, I don't think. Now, I mean, that's not true of all kinds. I have some friends who play. I don't even know if I would call this. I don't know what I would call this. It's kind of a meta strategic game involving role playing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and this usually happens like through the years. Occasionally, I have friends who GM, and I will control the actions of the antagonist for that little campaign.
Hmm.
And so, for that, I can go, an hour here or there, and we're kind of talking through strategies. But for me, that's not really any kind of immersive role playing
Hmm.
experience. Yeah.
No, no.
Yeah.
You're just the AI basically,
Yeah.
the
Right.
AI for the that particular opponent,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is good for the GM
It
because,
is. Yeah, to offload
that,
some of the GM's
right.
responsibilities.
And it
Yeah.
also makes him be fair.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it's like the temptation can always be there that you want your players to succeed and therefore you'll pull this punch or
Totally.
kind of Scooby-Doo your villain.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to have outside,
It is.
influences.
What I did for that, because I don't, my group's not large enough that I'm just a little too much of a control freak that I don't want anyone else running the bad guys. What I did though to keep myself honest is I just removed any game screen that I was using. Like so, I just said, look, if I'm rolling dice, um, you'll see I roll the dice. If anyone wants to check my roll, you can check my roll. Now there's some obviously if there's someone that's where it would break the immersion if the player saw that they failed or saw that they succeeded, then those are still private. But when it comes to me rolling dice for the bad guys, if there is a 2-hit mechanic and we have to roll dice for that mechanic, then I'm going to roll that where you can see I can't fudge it because
Hmm.
I have an aversion to fudging rolls for that very reason, right? Because it breaks the um, the real the realness of the world. If I can just break the oh no, I want you guys to get plot armor now, so I'm going to just give you yes, you probably should have just been killed when that train hit you, but because I really want you to go to this next thing, I'm going to just say that you
Yeah.
yeah you rolled a 1 and that's a critical failure or whatever it is, but you know what, I'll just fudge it
Yeah.
and I don't that just if you want to get that otherworldly immersion, you can't do that. You just
Yeah.
it immediately it's this is just a fun house then. This isn't
Right.
really it's not real.
Do you think that like within your group there is a distrust from your players that you would fudge one way or the other?
I don't think so. I don't think so because uh, the few times where there has been something that's completely unexpected that was dice related, I usually would show them. I'm like, you wouldn't believe this, guys, but here, look. Yeah, but I do think that you've touched on a key element, and that is one of trust. If we're going to have this immersion, this role play, this deep role play, then we have to trust that there's not going to be a sudden got you type game mastering
Sure. Yeah.
employed, because then it kind of because it's a risk for a player and it's a risk for me to say, look, we're going to pretend that this is real, and then all of a sudden the player starts saying things like, oh well, that one thing that I needed in this one instance, yeah, it just is, it's sitting on the counter over there, yeah, like that. Oh good. Oh, the door is locked. Oh no kidding. Well, I'll just look. Oh yeah, here it is. It's just in this potted plant. Here's the key. Like a player could abuse that type of freedom of movement in the game setting, and I
Hmm.
could abuse it too, uh, from my end. But if we trust that we're not just trying to foil one another just on a capricious type We're That's all we're doing. I just want to. I'm adversarial all the time, and you're trying to win the game, and so you win the game, and I'm adversary. So we don't have that dynamic. I've been very careful not to cultivate that type of dynamic. The way I used to do it, which I don't feel the need to anymore, I used to just be excited for the players when they did something that was great. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" Like I'm excited. Yes, I spent hours, with this particular lich that has, and I could tell you all of the time that I spent with his phylactery and his ambitions and goals and all of his, and you just through brilliant strategy or luck of the roll, you beat him. But I'm not married to that. And I have to just be able to let it go and then
Right.
celebrate with you so that you know that we're not against one another. I'm excited that something cool has happened and there's been this cinematic experience. But so that I've been careful with that, and so we don't have that type of group. I have played in games where there was an adversarial approach, and it to me that's not a long term tenable. It
No, not at
you know
all.
maybe if it would be okay if you were just in a convention or something like that, but I don't. I wouldn't choose to be in that situation.
No, I think that would be perfect if we're playing a war game and it's your
Mhm.
army against my army.
Yeah,
Then it's
it's
supposed to be. That's great,
of
but
course. Yeah, it's
that
chess.
that never works with role-playing
No,
games.
it
I
doesn't.
mean, how could it ever work? It's like
I can't think
I'm
of a
I'm
way.
both the other team and the referee, and now let's play
Exactly.
football. What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
exactly. Yeah, that's right. So
Yeah, I mean,
we
these
usually
are
complain, and we love to complain about what the referees are doing, right? So you,
right.
you can't have that be the same
No,
person.
yeah, yeah. One of the and this blows me away. One of the objections I run into when I talk about this rules opacity version, where the players don't see any numbers or roll any dice, is that they immediately say, "Oh, the GM can just cheat." And
Mhm, mhm.
if you think about that, what you just said, that statement, the GM can just cheat. What you're saying is this guy that I play with, who's my friend, is a lying cheat. And
Yeah,
the only
yeah,
reason he's not is because I'm watching him.
yeah.
And I
Them's
mean,
fighting words. Yeah,
what
exactly.
an indictment you've just made.
Oh,
What a
then why are
statement.
you even like? Why are you spending any
Yeah.
time with this
Why are you
person if that's
spending
the
any
way they
time at
are?
all? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So
yeah.
yeah, that's really sad.
It
And
is.
it's funny because so the old role-playing world, I mean, we inherited a bunch of jokes about how the GM is out to get you and
Yes.
how
Yeah. Rocks
every
fall. Everyone
yeah,
dies. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
yeah, how every module is the Tomb of Horrors, which is, I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
no joke, it's intentionally made to kill everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
they even came out and said it. But how anything in that ballpark is entertaining is beyond me. I could never enjoy that.
Yeah, I don't. Some people seem to, but I almost feel like, well, there's a better way. You
Yeah,
may say that this is great and you're having a lot of fun, but
yeah,
if I could just show you something
right,
else, like if we could just show you that there's a different way of running a
right,
deadly encounter and still, not be antagonistic all the time. So,
right.
yeah, yeah. That's why it's important that I think you're doing these videos because hey, there might be someone out there that will, the tens of people that'll watch our content, and I'm in the same boat, and I
Yeah,
you know and I
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah,
It's like you said earlier, and I think this is accurate. It's already a bit of a niche hobby, and then we're a niche within a niche of that hobby. Like
yeah,
it's but there are people out there like me that will see this and hear, and maybe instead of getting their back up, they'll that one time when I didn't get my back up, that I was like, you know what? Actually, he's right. Dang it. And and I'm so upset that he's right, but I can't argue that he's right.
yeah,
So that's why I think guys like yourself and Black Lodge Games, Matt and Nick, they're doing such a good job of just highlighting that no, there's a different way here. And I'm convinced that there's no going back. Once you experience that otherworldly immersion, to use your term, I think you've eaten that forbidden fruit. You can't go back. The old ways are closed to you,
yeah.
and that's how I feel too. I cannot go back. I would rather not play than go back to the way I used to play. So
Absolutely. If
yeah,
I if I couldn't if I had to choose between those two, I would choose to not play.
Yes,
because
exactly.
it's I mean, or I would choose just let's play miniature wargaming. I love that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah, exactly.
Or let's
Yeah,
play whatever. I used to be a
yeah.
great Stratego player when I was a kid, believe it or
I
not.
believe it. I believe it.
But you know,
Absolutely.
let's there's other things to do, but don't do the thing
Mhm.
that role playing was meant to do. Role playing is meant to let me walk around as another person
Yeah,
in a real world and an other world, a secondary world with cause and
100%.
effect and creating, you know, these ripples throughout the world. Only role-playing games can do it. And
Exactly.
that's the magic. And
Exactly.
once you find that magic, you're done with all the old
You are. You can't go
namby-pamby
back.
style. You can't go
You can't
back.
go back. That there is
Yeah.
no country for that old man anymore.
That's exactly
So
right.
we've
Yeah,
got we have and that's I'm excited for it. I'm just having I'm getting more enjoyment out of this hobby now than I've
right.
ever gotten before. And I had enough enjoyment before to spend the time and the resources and keep a game together and carve out time in a busy schedule with the one-time young kids. And my
Right.
kids are grown now, but they're like it was a negotiation with my wife. Okay, well, I'm going to need this time. I need this time for me, and
Right.
and then winning her support for it. There was enough enjoyment there for that. Now that's so much more. It's so much better. Uh,
That's great.
and I have to say, like you had pointed out, I have to say that my group has been very supportive. This would be so much more difficult if it's just us in our little islands, you and yours,
Yeah.
separated by thousands of miles, quite literally.
Right.
Uh, and it's nice to have that in YouTube where we can reach out to others that are having the same experience. But
Yeah.
I've been so fortunate that I get that weekly from an in-person group.
Yeah.
And
You are extremely
not
fortunate.
everyone gets,
Yeah.
I very few will get
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can refine these kind of conversations online,
Hmm.
that those that aren't getting that from their group can at least feel like, hey, you know what? No, I can press on with this. I can, break through these barriers
Hmm.
and get something that's even better than what I've experienced so far.
Yeah. That's great. All right. This is a great place to stop. I look forward to having lots of conversations like these with you. Um,
Absolutely, Daniel. Yeah.
and so let's I'll put all of your stuff in the show notes and we'll keep on. We're gonna evangelize the whole world to play like this.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're on a we are going to evangelize this. I think that's an accurate statement.
All
Absolutely.
right. All right. Well, thanks so much for the
Thank you
chat,
so much.
and
Thanks, Daniel.
I'll
It was
catch
a
you next time.
pleasure.
All right.
You bet. Talk to you later. Bye.